Hello and welcome back.
Who am I? I'm
Alyssa Dawn,
the
energy
bitch.
I am looking forward to sharing these stories, in part because whenever it comes to talking about awakenings, spiritual or otherwise, a lot of the ones that I hear about are... Actually, I don't even know all the ones that I hear about. Do you want to know why? Because I don't hear very many. And so that is actually why I took some time to look through and scour the web for people's firsthand accounts of what it was to awaken for them. I wanted to compile all of them into a single video, in part because it's hard to find them sometimes. So yeah, I am looking forward to sharing these stories. A few of these are a bit longer, but I hope that you'll stick around to hear them out, to see how there are some similarities, but then also some glaring differences. While I was going through this, I actually found a great quote regarding how we internalize words and how they're interpreted and used by others. Nowadays, the meanings of these words, awakening, realization, and enlightenment, are highly distorted because people have different types of fancy ideas about what these words mean. I saw this and I was just like, because everyone internalizes words differently, and while we can have shared connotations and definitions at a social level, when we experience certain things, the definitions that we have can become altered based off of how we've internalized those experiences and how we choose to use those words. So even though it can be a socially used word, we can have different meanings attached to it. And this is what I think is so fascinating when it comes to awakenings, because it's such a personal experience and we can all define it differently. And if you feel so inclined, please comment below with your own awakening story. It would be wonderful to compile not just the ones that I have in this video, but also in the forum below. So the first one I want to share is Bruce Taylor's story. Other answers describe spiritual awakening as the goal of a long journey, but I would rather think of it as the beginning. My spiritual awakening came when I realized I can't keep living my current life. I need something more. So my spiritual awakening marked the start of a long, frustrating, often painful process of trying to find a path out of the quotidian world into something numinous. My journey is about a decade old so far, and I can't see the end of the road, but it sure has been interesting. It started by having to abandon huge parts of my former persona: job, possessions, friendships, habits, and ingrained ideas. Little by little, those are being replaced by more flexible notions that are driven by forces outside me. And yes, it frequently feels very strange and often dangerous, but I'm gradually learning to trust in the journey, even if I can't see the destination. I feel like that's like a really simple sum up of what it feels like to go through awakenings. And something that I found from my own experience is that it's not just a one and done. You don't have that one aha moment and then you're done. It's more so a series of events that continue to happen, and multiple awakenings unfold as you kind of reach the next threshold in your understanding of yourself and your role in the world around you and how you relate to everything within and without. This next one is Daisy Lee's story. Spiritual awakening experience. What a loaded concept. Understanding reality took about a couple of years. Why so long? Because I couldn't see the obvious. The I who is trying to understand reality has never been anything but an impermanent, fleeting thought that's also been very stubborn, persistent, and obsessive in its manifestation. And I couldn't see the obvious because of the cultural brainwashing of the society where one must do things to get results. From this perspective, I was listening to all kinds of fantastic stories about something to get: bliss, eternal happiness, wisdom, etc. I was listening with the mind and getting into all kind of arguments about this. It took a while to get the mind to such a frustrated point, picking on words and ideas to criticize and reject, until little by little the understanding that listening to others talking about reality had nothing to do with reality. I now can listen to the same words and ideas, but not with the mind. If I would have understood clearly from the beginning that reality starts where the mind ends, that it is not an event to be expected to come as a result of some kind of preparation, but for a matter of perception of a split second of the now, it would have saved lots of frustration. I heard the words many times believing I was listening, but it took a couple years to truly listen and understand and go beyond the words and the mind and just be. Before continuing, I want to take a moment to give a disclaimer and also a trigger warning. These next stories do contain some darker topics, including depression, suicide, and mental health issues. If any of these are triggers for you, thank you for joining me up until this point, and please subscribe to come back for some more stories in my next video, and I appreciate your time and being here up until now. For everyone else, let's go ahead and jump in. This next story is Peter Agros's. First of all, I love you. I love that start. This could be a novel, but I'll give you the comic book version. Depression started to creep slowly into my life right around the time I turned 30. Over the next 6 years, depression slowly took over my every thought. I developed coping mechanisms to deal with the added emotional weight of my depression. Mostly that meant I drank a lot of alcohol. One day, all of my coping mechanisms failed simultaneously, and my life crashed. The depression had reached such a dark place, I decided I needed help. I admitted myself to a psychiatric hospital for 2 weeks. I got on medication, and I took an 8-week leave of absence from work. During those 8 weeks, I got a lot of help from a group therapy program at the same hospital. Once that was finished, I began my interior work with a personal therapist for 3 years. During those 3 years, I also did the following. I began a daily meditation regimen. I gave up drinking. I gave up smoking. I made my happiness my own responsibility. I made a commitment to take a long, hard look at the part I played in my own happiness. Turns out I was quite an asshole. I worked every day to love more and sulk less. I forgave. At first, I forgave only some. Soon, it was everyone. I asked for forgiveness for those I hurt. I let grace take over my body, mind, and heart. I accepted whatever came to me, one moment at a time, without bias. Unpleasant moments are as equally welcome as pleasant ones. I learned quickly that it's the unpleasant ones that hold the most value. My heart healed and opened. At first, I loved only some. Soon, it was everyone, then everything. Depression died, leaving peace. 2 dark nights of the soul came and passed. The first to detach me from form and addiction, the second to detach me from ego. I am still healing, and my life is not perfect, but I don't want it to be perfect. I just want it to be filled with acts of love. Blessings. This next story is from Jeannette Sweet. For me, it started after I had a complete breakdown, the dark night of the soul, in which I lost everything. I sank into a deep depression and lost my will to live. I underwent intense therapy, had a year off work on full pay, and tried to return to work, but eventually it forced me to leave my job. I had to sell my investment properties, and my children's father killed himself. Then, after a little over a year of unbelievable suffering, I was meditating, and all of a sudden I felt like my mind was expanding, and I was in a different dimension. I felt completely alive and free and at peace. I felt like I was looking down on Earth, and I could see anything and everything. I saw multiple dimensions that I knew to be different levels of consciousness, like layers around the Earth. I could see and be anywhere and everywhere in the world instantly, and I could see and be with anyone, living or dead, and I felt at complete peace. I felt that I was in heaven and like I had seen the other side after life, and it was exhilarating. I came to truly understand incredibly profound things, including things that I had read before, but had never truly comprehended until that moment. I had the overwhelming realization that when you want nothing, you have everything. I felt overwhelming joy. I felt like I had everything because I wanted nothing. I can't describe the state of bliss, completion, and peace that I felt. It truly was an awakening. For about a week, I felt completely at peace. I wish I could experience that phenomenon again. It was amazing. Since then, I have embraced my spirituality, and I have learned to accept things as they are and trust that what will be, will be. Along with the realization that when you want nothing, you have everything, I came to the realization that to find peace, you need to accept not having peace. I realized that love is all that matters. By loving and trusting that everything is happening exactly as it should and not fighting or trying to control it, I am able to progress beyond it. I learned that what you resist persists. I found myself and I am healing. And the way that I am healing is by accepting what is and noticing it without judgment. By not fighting what is, I am finding so much more than I ever thought possible. Since these are a bit longer, I just have one more to include in this video, and this next one is Shweta Singh's story. My spiritual journey started 6 years ago in 2013 and has still not ended. It keeps throwing up surprises, miracles, and intense suffering too, but it has been such a mind-blowing journey overall that I wish it would never end. In hindsight, it feels as if the whole thing was set up to happen. It doesn't seem accidental, and although it feels sudden to me, it isn't. This is how it panned out through my life, culminating in that moment of spiritual awakening. I had been depressed for as long as I could remember, right from teenage years. The reason for my depression was very, very vague. I just didn't know why. I felt out of place, as if I did not belong to this world. I had this strange yearning, gnawing pain of missing something, but I had no idea what. Although it mimicked sadness about regular life issues, it was actually deeper. It was an existential depression. I didn't know who I was or what I was doing here. Right before my awakening in 2013, both my personal and professional life fell apart. I was having a hard time finding meaning and fulfillment at work, and this had been going on for a long time. I had some nasty experiences with a swindler who fleeced me of money. I was single, no relationship would really work. Things came to a head with the swindler experience, and I was so shocked I decided to quit everything. I dropped all of my current life. My job, the search for a relationship, everything. Then it happened. I decided to meditate. I had never meditated ever, never really been ever slightly spiritual. In 3 days, something amazing happened. I started feeling strong energy moving in my body. In one particularly long meditation session, it engulfed my whole body and I began to shake like a leaf. Immediately, I felt intense bliss flow into my head, through my shoulders, down to my limbs. I felt as if my insides had been washed with sweet honey, cool, nourishing, and healing. After that, I underwent rapid psychological change. I lost many of my fears and anxieties almost overnight. I felt strangely loved and taken care of by the universe. I felt confident in my existence. I consumed spiritual and self-help information at an exponential rate. Suddenly, I understood the meaning of scriptures and spiritual teachings intuitively. Massive emotional and karmic cleansing began to happen. I met a soulmate who remains a close friend to date, and also someone who I think is my twin flame. After the twin flame encounter, another massive awakening happened. I lost a lot of my ego, understood unconditional love, and the purpose of suffering. Finally, in another electrifying awakening, I connected directly with the source, or God, or pure consciousness. It was the most stunning experience in my life, where I was left completely doubt-free about the existence of this higher consciousness. I was told it was my mandate to teach and spread the word about this higher force, which I've begun to do in full earnest. It is the mission of my life. Something I want to share is this last story was from a blogger and author who actually has their own website if you're interested to learn more about their individual story. Something I enjoy about consuming the awakening stories of others is to not really feel alone, especially because when going through an awakening of any kind, it can feel very isolating. In part, I think it's because we kind of gain a hyper awareness of ourselves as we are connected as well as separate from everything else around us. We can see the boundaries that exist while they also don't exist. And it's such a weird thing to talk about. I've always found it difficult to effectively share my own experiences for a lot of the reasons that were kind of mentioned in these stories that I've shared, which is it can be very disjointed. There's a lot of pieces that have gone into it. And in particular for me, while I do have defining moments in my life where I've gained a new level of awareness of myself and the world and just the general collective, there have been many, and it's constantly happening, and it's kind of that feeling of it's hard to recount a story almost when it seems like I'm still in the middle. The way that I view enlightenment is not a state in which like once you're there, like you ascend into heaven and like that's what it is. No, even when you reach enlightenment, life continues. And actually that's what the topic of my next video will be. If you enjoyed these stories, please give a like, and if you feel so inclined, please share your own awakening story below. My next video will be sharing stories of what life is like after spiritual awakening, and so if you're curious to hear that, please subscribe and ring the bell to be notified, and I hope all is well with you and yours. Bye. Good. So the first one I want to share is but the different meanings that they all, how different everyone has, or oh my god, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.